All right, the last couple concepts I'm going to talk about for today's module is, so we've talked about, adding shapes like squares and triangles and, circles and things like that, right? And we've talked about adding colors and strokes and fills and all that kind of stuff. Um, Visually, we may want to deal with text. So we can actually work with text too. I don't know if I have it in my, no, I don't know if I put it here. Yeah. I don't have any of the code specifically in the slides, but basically there's a function called text, and what it allows you to do is write out a sentence or two of text and then place it at an XY coordinate. Okay. So what I'm actually going to do, let's go to the reference and we'll go to typography and see how it kind of drops down here. And we're going to use the text function. So essentially what you're going to use is they're using the word string, which we'll talk about what that means in the future. The string of text or the sentence of text and then an XY coordinate. Okay. You can also set if you want to set a height and a width for the text box, kind of like the way in Illustrator or Photoshop, we could make text fields, kind of like that. You can do that. It doesn't defaultly happen that way, but you could. So what I'm going to do is go into here and I have this canvas here, and I'm going to add some text to it. So we're going to use the function text, and I'm just going to type something out like hello world. Notice that I put it in quotation marks. If you're going to write text, in this case, it has to be in quotation marks. And then I'm going to give an XY coordinate. I kind of want it in the middle. So if it's 400 by 400, then I want an X value of 200 and a Y value of 200. Okay. There's my text. You want to change the text, to change it here. Hello world. Okay. This is where I might want to move it over or create that text box or text field. So like I'm going to set a width of, I don't know, 300 pixels maybe. Like 200. There you go. So what's happening is there's like an invisible sort of line here. That's why it's going to the next line there. All right, so, that's kind of fun. We can place text wherever we want it. I'm going to place it kind of, maybe let's do it up here in the upper right. So that would be like 50-50 in terms of its placement. Okay. If you want to make the text physically larger, there's actually another function here called text size. And essentially what you do is you use the function and you state the size you want the text to be. It's going to be measured in pixels. So let's say I come to here and I'm going to write text size 50. Okay. Now you'll notice that nothing happened, right? Now, why is that? Well, remember, text or code is procedural. Okay. So let's like literally go through this step by step. Build a canvas, make that canvas yellow, create some text, place it at X50, Y50, make the size of the text 50 pixels. The problem is I already built the text. So once it's been built, you can't go back and change it. You actually have to set all the settings before you create it. Okay. So this is one of those of like, it matters the order that you do things. I'm going to take this and I'm going to put it before the text like that. Oops, except I'm going to, there we go. And now you can see that it's working. Okay. It's a little bit big, so maybe, I don't know, 30. There you go. Better. Okay. So we can resize the text to be whatever size we want. By default, it's going to use the default font of your browser. Okay. You can see here that my default font is like Helvetica. Let's say I didn't want to use Helvetica. Let's say I wanted to use something like Courier or something like that. Well, we have another function that lets you set the font. Okay. Otherwise, it's going to use the default of the browser. So you can set the font here. Okay. Oops. So I'm going to go back and let's say I wanted to use Courier. Make sure it's text font. Okay. And I'm going to use Courier. The name of the font has to go in quotation marks. And oops. Text. There you go. Okay. Now, the thing about this is it's only going to work with the fonts that are installed on your computer. Okay. So if you try to use a font that isn't installed in your computer, it won't show up. Okay. The same thing is if you were to use a font on your computer that I don't have, and then you send me the link to to this code sketch, I wouldn't be able to see that font unless I had it. So just keep in mind that this allows you to dictate the font, kind of like the way CSS would, but it's not a guarantee that the person viewing it will have that font. Okay. All right, so we can use text and write text and place it, and that's gonna be fun. Last thing I'm going to talk about is writing comments. Okay. Now, we've talked about writing comments in code before. Oh, it's moving so slow today. All right. I have this HTML file here. And if you remember, when we made comments in HTML, we do right-facing angled bracket, exclamation, hyphen, hyphen. And then to close the comment, hyphen, hyphen, left-facing angle bracket. This text will not be seen. Okay. This text will be seen. Okay. So if I preview this in a browser, that text that's in the comment is not seen, even though it's actually still in the document. Okay. What this basically tells the browser or the rendering agent is, yes, don't actually print this to the console here, or to the, to the rendering for the page. Okay. Now, why do we want to do this? Well, you might want to write yourself some comments or put comments for other people, like other programmers in it. It's usually used as an organizational kind of element. We can do the same thing in CSS. So if you have a lot of CSS, you might remember that I said we can use, it's a different way of creating a comment, but the way you would do it is /**/. Okay. I like to call it the meatball sandwich, bread, meatball, meatball, bread. Okay. And a sandwich bread always goes on the outside, right? And then the meatballs go on the inside. That's how I like to remember it. So, I could put a comment here. I don't know. If you have a lot of CSS, you're probably organizing by like, CSS fonts or typography, whatever you want to call it. Maybe later on, I'm going to have CSS backgrounds. If you're in Visual Studio Code, you can actually use Command or Control // and depending on what type of file you're working with, it'll automatically create the correct comment system, which is kind of nice. That's once again Command or Control // now that was for HTML and CSS. We could do the same thing in JavaScript too. So I'm going to go to exercise 7. And the way that you write a comment, there's 2 ways to write comments in JavaScript. One is what's called a single line comment. Okay. In a single line comment, it only affects a single line. And the way that we denote that is //. Okay. If you do that, in this case, it's going to turn gray in this online P5 editor. This is a comment. this code will not run. Okay. So you'll notice if I run this, nothing happens, right? A lot of times we use comments, not just to, we do use it for organization purposes and sort of denoting things. Sometimes though, we also use it to sort of remove code without permanently deleting it. So for right now, let's, I have these three circles, right? Let's just say I wasn't quite sure what this one did, but I didn't want to delete it because I might want it again later. What I could do is just comment it out, // So now that this code has been commented out, it will not run. And so if I preview, I don't get that. Okay. Like with Visual Studio Code, you can do command / in the online editor and it'll do it for you. Okay. Another way to create a comment in JavaScript is you can create a multi-line comment. Okay. And actually, it's the same as it is in CSS. You do / star / okay. So now what I've done is I've commented it out all three of these lines of code here. And so none of those circles appear. If I decide later, oh, actually, I really wanted that code, well, you can uncomment it, as I've done, and everything should go back to the way it was. So commenting is very important. One, it just makes it, if you're working with other people, other programmers, it's very good to document what you're doing so that other people can understand your code. It's also good when you're doing more complex programming. Sometimes you're going to run into problems and you're not quite sure what's causing the problem. This is called debugging, right? And so sometimes you want to you want to remove some code just to see what happens, but you don't want to delete it because you don't have to like copy and paste it or rewrite it or anything like that. So commenting it out is a really good way of like if turning it off temporarily, but not like fully removing it. It's very easy to bring it back just by removing the comment. Okay. So why don't you guys try that out? That was 6 and 7, please.